Ivan Dodig slipped chasing a shot at Indian Wells in March 2016 and fell onto his own racket. The frame cut his cheek in a raw, bloody wound that stopped play. Cameras captured the moment and the crowd went quiet because it wasn't contact with an opponent, but a freak, self-inflicted cut from a sudden slip. Medics ran on. The match lost rhythm and clips replayed that ugly scene across social feeds for days. He walked off shaken rather than broken, but the image lingered. A tiny misstep plus a hard edge turned a routine point into instant, unforgettable pain for viewers and players alike. It didn't end a career, but it shut down the match and shook confidence in seconds, a reminder of how fragile momentum can be, from bad to worse. Hold tight. The next one ramps up the danger. Nicholas Mahat crashed at the Nitto ATP Finals in London in November 2018 when he sprinted back and slammed into the advertising hoardings, flipping over them in a terrifying tumble. The impact left a cut and a bloody chin, the arena fell silent, and medics checked him on court while broadcasters and fans watched in shock. Clips spread fast showing how risky court layouts can be when players run full speed. Mahat later called for redesigned hoardings because the crash wasn't just embarrassing. It was dangerous and could have caused much worse damage. The moment sparked safety conversations across the tour and stuck with players as a blunt example of how hustle can meet hazard. It didn't break bones, but the shock and blood made it one of those painful moments people replay and talk about. Hang on. The next one gets stranger and rougher. Tim Puts suffered a freak accident at the Qatar ExxonMobil Open in Doha in March 2021 when his own racket handle rebounded and struck his face near the eye. Blood and a stunned expression took over the frame as medics came running. Broadcasters called it terrifying because he briefly reported trouble seeing. He retired from the match, and clips circulated showing the raw aftermath where an athlete's equipment injured him worse than an opponent might have. The scene triggered conversations about grip control, racket handling, and odd equipment risks, since players rarely get hurt by their own gear on court. While no fracture was reported, the moment stayed with viewers. A bizarre, gruesome reminder that the tool of the trade can become the source of pain. Teams and commentators replayed the clip as a cautionary example, and he needed medical checks, walking off in care. Top to bottom, it's stepping up. The next one brings more severe consequences. Nikola Kunkun's collapse came at the Miami Open on March 21, 2019, when severe cramping and dehydration forced him down mid-match and left him lying while medics rushed in. Temperatures and exhaustion turned a competitive fight into a medical emergency. The long, still seconds felt endless to the crowd and the player alike. He retired from the match and later thanked fans on social media, but the clip circulated widely because it exposed the limits of conditioning even for top athletes. Coaches use it to stress hydration and smarter pacing where the margin is tiny. It was a sharp reminder that physical limits can override skill, and that pacing and medical readiness can be the difference between finishing a match and being carried off. The incident became a teaching moment across training rooms and sports science teams. Ready for the ramp up? The next one hits harder on the body and the mind. Jack Draper. Draper's collapse at the Miami Open on March 25, 2021, froze the stadium when the young player suddenly folded and hit the court hard. He'd been playing fearlessly, then went down without contact, and medics ran on as fans watched stunned and commentators questioned what had happened. It was a medical fall tied to heat and fatigue concerns, not a collision, and it sparked debate over scheduling and player recovery at big events. He recovered and later returned to tour life, but that day stayed as a headline about how fragile athletes can be under extreme strain. The image of a player carried off became a painful memory and a lesson for coaches about smarter workload management and rest strategies. It changed conversations about youth and recovery. Hold on. The next stories move into real on-court injuries that change seasons and careers. Andy Murray. Andy Murray's early test came at Queen's Club in June 2005 against Thomas Johansson. He slipped chasing a lob, jarred his ankle, then fought crippling cramps through the deciding set. He limped, grimaced, but kept grinding points. No broken bone, yet the pain swung the match and stuck as a lesson in grit and better fitness. Fast forward to the Miami Open on March 24, 2024 against Tomasz Machach. Murray rolled his left ankle badly. He later announced a full rupture of the anterior talofibular ligament and a near full rupture of the calcaneofibular ligament. Surgery was possible, multiple events were withdrawn from, and the injury forced a long, uncertain recovery. 2 moments, same player, one built resolve, the other broke a season. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unbelievable tennis moments. Dustin Brown. At the Open Sud de France in Montpellier, February 2018, Dustin Brown was playing on a hot streak when his body suddenly betrayed him. Mid-match, he pulled up with a severe back problem, an acute muscle spasm or disc issue, and collapsed into visible pain. Cameras caught him clutching his back, tears in his eyes, unable to continue while the crowd went silent. He retired from the match while leading. It wasn't a single fracture, but a brutal, career-impacting medical moment. 1 point, 1 pull, and months of rehab and lost momentum. Fans and commentators called it heartbreaking because Brown's fire on court met a body that suddenly shut down. That was rough? Brace yourself. The next one's a nasty ankle horror. Arthur Cazaux. At the Barcelona Open in April 2024, Arthur Cazaux fell on clay, and his right ankle twisted in a way that made people gasp. Broadcasters and social posts called it a horror ankle injury, extreme swelling, a twisted joint, and immediate retirement from the match versus Matteo Arnaldi. He later shared photos of a heavily swollen and contused ankle, and reporters warned of suspected ligament damage. Scans were needed to rule out fractures. For a young player fighting for form, that kind of ankle damage can mean weeks or months off, missed tournaments, and a big hit to momentum. The visual stuck on social media because the swelling looked severe and sudden. Fans feared the worst. It wasn't confirmed as a full fracture in major outlets, but it was nasty enough to sideline him and prompt real concern in his camp. That one hurt the season. And the next story goes higher on the pain scale. Alexander Zverev. At Roland Garros on June 3, 2022, Alexander Zverev chased a shot and planted wrong. His right ankle violently rolled. He screamed and was taken off in a wheelchair. The injury was catastrophic. All 3 lateral ankle ligaments were torn. He had surgery days later and missed the rest of the season. The moment looked instant and final. 1 bad step and months of rehab replaced match play. Zverev later dealt with bone edema setbacks that complicated recovery, and the whole episode showed how a single twist can topple a top player's calendar and form. It was brutal, happening right in the middle of a Grand Slam run. The stakes and the pain were massive. For fans, seeing a top athlete removed in a wheelchair and moments later appearing on crutches is a stark reminder of how one wrong step can turn dominance into disaster and show just how fragile even elite bodies truly are. That was severe. Next one is even worse. Major ligament and reconstructive surgery. Daria Saville. On September 20th, 2022 at the Toray Pan Pacific Open in Tokyo, Daria Saville went down in the second game and clutched her left knee, crying out in real pain. Minutes later, she retired and MRI scans confirmed a torn ACL. Not just a tweak, but a major ligament rupture that required surgery about a week later. Saville had torn an ACL before in 2013, so this was a horrific, familiar blow. Reconstruction, 9 months of rehab, and a long road back to pro form. She missed most of the season, losing key momentum. The on-court collapse was brief but devastating. Naomi Osaka even ran over to check on her. For players, an ACL tear is among the worst in tennis. Long recovery, uncertain return, and heavy mental work to trust the knee again. That was career-shaping pain. Hold tight, the next one is a confirmed bone break that cost a major tournament. Leylah Fernandez. During her Roland Garros quarterfinal on May 31st, 2022, versus Martina Trevisan, Leylah Fernandez hobbled and battled through treatment, but the damage was real. After the match, scans confirmed a severe foot injury. Some reports labeled it a grade 3 stress fracture or broken foot, and she was forced out of the grass swing, missing Wimbledon. The injury came at a painful moment in her breakout year. She'd been climbing and then suddenly couldn't run the way she needed to. Stress fractures in the foot demand extended rest, slow rehab, and a careful rebuild of confidence on different surfaces. For Fernandez, it was a tough pause that cost ranking momentum and tournament chances. But if Leylah's fracture was heartbreaking, Julian Beneto's injury was a pure nightmare, actually broke a bone. The kind that ends matches, seasons, and nearly careers. Julian Benneteau. At the Monte Carlo Rolex Masters in April 2012, Julian Benneteau slipped while chasing a ball and landed awkwardly on his arm and side. The replay made it clear. This wasn't a normal tumble. He left the court in agony and later scans confirmed a fractured right elbow plus sprains to his ankle and wrist. The injury forced him out of immediate tournaments and put his French Open chances in doubt, turning a single misstep into weeks on the sidelines. For a pro like Beneteau, who built his career on speed and reflex, an elbow break is brutal. It stops serves, volleys, everything. The recovery was long and painful, with rehab replacing match practice and a sudden pause to a year's momentum. The crowd that day watched a player's season fracture in real time. And that's it. From slips to fractures, tennis pain spares no one. Subscribe and stay tuned for more shocking moments.